Well, good morning, everybody. Friday morning out here. Last night, Rebecca and I poured these footers out here for cabin 2, and everything was looking fine for me to come out here, or for both of us actually to come out here this morning, set the tubes up, run some laser and kind of figure things out. But things changed this morning. I refreshed my screen again. I looked at it last night, refreshed it this morning when I got up, and today is really just supposed to be cloudy. So it dropped from like a 80-90% chance of rain about 2-3 in the afternoon down to just cloudy most of the day. Chance of rain like 15% at some point like 6 p.m. tonight. So I'm not really under a big rush. I don't think I was really under a big rush anyway, but the sense of urgency to kind of get things done has kind of faded away. So actually out here an hour later than what I want. It's just after 8 in the morning now, and it is certainly cloudy out, but it's got a sense of wetness in the air, and no big rush to try and beat the rain this afternoon. So gonna get the tubes on. I'm gonna run, I've got my laser level out here, so we're gonna try and see, try and get a picture of how much adjustments got to be made as far as the top of the tubes being level across the board. So that's gonna be first on the list, and yeah, we'll kind of go from there. Everything looks great as far as lining up, kind of looking down over the tube and such. But let me show you here. I'm not sure if I can really show this too well. So down there on the, let's see, it's left on the screen, this piece of rebar is against the bottom of the tube. Okay, and then up here towards the top, you can see this piece of rebar, and this kind of square that I make is on this side of it. Now, based on the light in the bottom of the tube, it appears that this side, you can see light underneath it, is not kind of flush with the ground. You can see how the rest of this looks dark down there. Now, one of the advantages I'm quickly realizing here of this is now that I can, the rebar is basically cemented into the ground, I can just bend this. I can push on the right side here. I can push this whole structure, the rebar, to the left, get it more centered up with the tube so that maybe it now alleviates that daylight coming through, and I can get it. And to be honest, I mean, the bottom of the tube may not be perfectly flat, so, but what I do know is that the concrete is perfectly flat. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. I do have a concrete anomaly right here that is holding that up. So I'm going to bust that off, and we should get it set flush. But I'm still going to bend this over so that this rebar is more centered in the tube itself. This one back here, the longest one, I thought might be the issue, but this one is actually sitting in here rather perfectly. So I gotta tell you, I am flabbergasted about how nice this actually came out as far as a method of how to do that. And now, granted, I'm not done yet, but this is certain as far as ease of using these tubes and not having to worry about bumping them and knocking them off. If you look back at some of my older videos, I mean, it was like a clown show trying to get concrete in the holes, shovel by shovel. So as here, I was just able to take my my pan and just dump it in as it was getting spun out of the mixer. So yeah, this is a 100% improvement. So let me get to work on really kind of fine-tuning these, and then we'll get I already have kind of the laser. It's boxed up still here. So I'm going to set it up down here, and yeah, we'll see how the top of these tubes, see how close I was to getting actually just 1 foot of concrete in the holes. All right, guys, let me show you what my next step here is going to be. So what I want to do, I want to establish the lowest top of the pier. I know they're all going to be relatively close because of my marking that I had on the rebar, that blue tape, if you can remember that. So my idea is to find the lowest one, and that would mean that every other one is too high. So depending on how high they would actually be would really determine how much I can cut off the top of the pier and then make it, you know, closer to everything being level. So what I've done, I used my my little level here, and I picked this. You can see my laser is over here, so I just picked this pier to be kind of the start of the whole thing. So I set that across there, and then I use my sensor here so you hear that solid tone. That means that the top of this here is level with the laser. So this level will be my standard height. So everything will get measured off of the top of that level. Okay, so I've gone around now and done this process with each of the piers, and I have found my lowest one. So this pier here, this is the back left corner of the cabin. Let me grab my... Okay. So my little digital indicator here is telling me a slow beep like that means it's got to go higher. A faster beep like that means it has to go lower. So it's got a slow beep. It has to go up. Let me try and level this out a little bit. It's got it at 3/4 It's floating between 3/4 and 13/16. Every other pier that is out here is between that 0 line from that one that we selected earlier to this being about 3/4 of an inch low. So everything is in between there. The actual front of the cabin was all off by about 1/16 of an inch, totally acceptable. Now this one here is obviously the lowest one. So it's at this point you have to make the decision of whether or not you're going to bring all the other piers, the concrete piers, down to this level, or would it be better to just bring this up 3/4 of an inch off the bottom? Let me think about this. All right, guys, here's what I come up with. So I've got some scraps. These were actually what I used for stickers, and these are 3/4 of an inch thick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lift this tube up, put these under here, and recheck my measurement. So I'll basically put these against the rebar that's inside to get the most coverage that I can, support for the tube. So that way when the concrete gets poured in, it really doesn't move that much. Okay, that's about as good as we're gonna get. Now the tube is off level by maybe 1/8 of an inch. That gap down here, you can see the bubbles fairly centered now, and then just like that. So that's totally acceptable in my book. So I've got these supports under here now, and let's retake a measurement here. Boss is on site, surveying my work. All right, that's the sound we're looking for. That's telling me that the top of this tube now is level. Let's see here. Okay, when I level the sensor, it's telling me 1/16 of an inch. It needs to go down 1/16 of an inch, but that's completely within my tolerance there. Okay, this is where we kind of are leaving it off here with this pier. So the boss was just here. She was helping me. She had pressure to the top of this tube so that when I throw the dirt around it, it didn't really move that much, and it really didn't. But let me show you what the inside here, the final product, is going to look like. So that's 3/4 inches off of the deck, or off that concrete flat portion. It's going to allow, I think, plenty of contact area onto the concrete, plus the fact it's going to wrap around the rebar the entire way. And the tube itself is centered enough. It looks great from where I'm standing. So that ideally, because we had pulled some diagonals before, that ideally is where the bolt head is going to reside. So what I'm going to do now is go around. I'm actually going to write on the tube. I got myself a little Sharpie. So I'm going to go around, just for my sense of well-being, that I'm going to retake measurements, and I'm going to write on each tube what the variance is from my benchmark. If this is 0, each one is up or down a certain amount. So I want to, just for my peace of mind, I'm going to write it on there, and then I'll see if I'm going to need any more shims underneath the tubes. I'm almost certain nothing is more than, you know, a couple eighths off. Quarter inch maybe. We'll see. So let me get some measurements done. All right, guys, starting back here in this front right corner, this was my benchmark, so this is 0. The middle front needs to come up 1/8 of an inch, totally acceptable. I don't know what I was thinking. I must have been looking simply at the part of the fraction that was displayed on my screen, but this has to come up 1.25 inches, so I'm going to have to adjust that one. This one on this side I've already adjusted. This needed to come down 1/16 of an inch. Totally acceptable. The middle back has to come down 1/4 of an inch. Again, I am fine with that. And then this one here in the back has got to come up 7/16. So that's almost 1/2 inch. So I'm debating on whether or not I should adjust that. I think I might. So let me think on things. We'll get back to you. Well, this is the current situation here. All of the holes are backfilled right now with dirt. The boss was just down here kind of applying pressure to the top of them, and I was shoveling the dirt in the side. So any one that was low that needed to be brought up, there's been a shim put inside the hole. This one here was my worst one. This was 1.25 inches. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it did. So it's got little shims in the bottom of there to raise that up. Okay, let's see, this back corner had some shims. His had to come up like 7/16. Let's see if we can't see inside down there at the bottom. Well, they're there. Trust me. So, yeah, everything is looking great right now. Everything is within. This is my one that's worst off right now, so it actually has to be dropped by 1/4 of an inch. So that's all a response to me not having the one that was worst off when I started. So it doesn't. So what's going to happen here, I'm not going to cut the tube 1/4 of an inch. That would just open me up for all sorts of mistakes. So I'm actually just not going to fill this one kind of all the way to the top. I'll leave a little bit of it below, and you know, we'll kind of go from there. As long as I make up a little bit of that amount, I can always shim it. I'd rather it be short than high, because I would not be able to remove dried concrete. I guess I could grind it off, but I don't want to spend my time doing that. This one here has got to go down 1/16, so again, that one will not be filled all the way to the top. This one here has got to come up 1/8 of an inch. That one goes down 1/16 of an inch. And of course, this one here now is still at 0. And then this one is at 0 as well. So, must be Friday. Got a lot of bikes and stuff out running on the road. I imagine they're out riding today, because tomorrow, well, who knows what the weather's going to be. I got duped this morning, so we'll see. All right, guys, really next step here, I'm going to start mixing some concrete, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Well, before I get to actually spinning some concrete, I just want to show you kind of how I have my job site set up. So in the middle, with enough extension cord here to reach each one of the piers, is my concrete vibrator. Okay, Over here is where I'm mixing it. That is the most level spot in this area. So I don't really move the mixer much at all. I will dump usually a bag or two at a time into this hopper, and then I'll drag this hopper to the hole and then shovel in the concrete. So relatively close to the mixer, I've got my pallet of concrete here. Now I have 11.5 bags of concrete left here. And then I have a couple actual standbys from the last batch of concrete I ordered. So I think I should be good to go as far as concrete goes, as far as having enough. So that's kind of the operation. My only thing I need to kind of work on is the rope, the string that I have. I'd like to move that out of the way. It'll be kind of hard to shovel the concrete into the hole with the string hanging over it. So I need to find a way that I can move the string without, you know, damaging the actual accuracy of the crosshairs. So like this one here, the corners are especially difficult because there's not much room to pour the concrete in without hitting those strings. So I need to just kind of pull those back a little bit, and then at the same time be able to return it to that position so I can put the anchor bolt in. It should be directly under that crosshair right there. So I'll work on that. I'm not quite sure how I'll get that done, but I'm sure I can figure that out. All right, guys, let's get to spinning some concrete here. I'm not quite sure how long that took, but it was a little while. I'm sure that was a couple hours maybe, getting all that done. Got a little bit of concrete left. Maybe a bag in there, maybe less than half a bag, or maybe less, maybe about a half, something like that. But everything went very well. Everything really kind of lined up well. I got these pins pretty close to where I want them. Not much variation. I left some of them a little proud than I normally would. Let's keep that vertical here. So, but that's an easy fix with grinding that off. Again, I may have to do some shimming and things like that, but I think let's see, like this one over here, I think not filling it, so I had to come down, this one had to come down 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so you can see, I can still see the rim around the top of this, so I think that's going to, and of course this is probably going to shrink a little bit as it dries out, so you know, I should be pretty close. Again, I'm not afraid to put a shim under the skids to kind of level things out, but a 1/16 here and a 1/16 there, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty okay. This is I would say the worst one, but it is the worst one. As far as centering the pin, it is a little too far this way, but that's just kind of the way it goes. That's, you know, there's really nothing I can do with that, and it's just how these strings kind of lined up on it. And you know, you can eyeball things as much as you want, and you know, I certainly tripped over these strings and stuff like that, so it may you know, I don't know, it may have stretched out, may have gone a different way, but anyway, as it is right now, this cabin 2 concrete footers and piers, we're gonna call this done. All right, guys, let me get around here. I got a bunch of bags over there I got to throw away. I got to get rid of this concrete that's still spinning, and I got to clean up all my tools. Again, the concrete vibrator, if you don't have one, you do a little concrete work, you're gonna wish you had one. They are fantastic. A little bit of concrete left over there in my dolly, my little bucket. All right, guys, let me get cleaned up. Just about wrapping things up here down at cabin 2 for the day. So I brought my rake down, just kind of knocked down the piles of dirt that were kind of sitting around. So it looks relatively neat around here right now. So these front 3 here on this side, I can't move the bolt at all right now. The back side, there's still a little bit of shimmy, but you know, I'm obviously not moving it a whole bunch, maybe just a fraction of a hair. So this is going good. These are going to dry out, harden up, and we'll give this a couple days probably. I'll probably come out tomorrow, probably do my best to get the cardboard off of it, the tubes actually off of it. I hear quite a bit about people that take them off after only a couple hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours, and then they kind of rub the siding of it, give it a little kind of rougher finished look. I have no experience with that, so this is going just fine the way it is, and I'm not going to screw it up. So that being said, we're going to call it quits here for cabin 2 for the day. Once we do get back down here, like I showed you before, I've got my pallet of wood here. This is everything I need to get it up to the subfloor. And yeah, so it's all ready to go, and that shouldn't be too much of an effort to make this happen. So we're calling it quits from cabin 2 today, but we certainly have other things we got to get moving on, so let's do it. Well, I know I said I was done here with the cabin 2 area for the day, but I just couldn't help myself. So I came down a little bit ago and pulled off the tubes and gave the concrete a little bit of a rub down, gave it a little rough finish, and it turned out awesome. So it got rid of the little spiral indentation that's on it from the tube itself, It filled in a lot of the little like micro holes that were there, and it just looks fantastic. So, I mean, for something that you're not going to see really anyway, once we get some sort of skirt around the cabins, but I couldn't be more impressed. So now we're done with cabin 2. It's about 6 o'clock, so these were poured anywhere between probably 7 and 9 hours ago, depending on. This front left one here was obviously the first one. That was obviously the hardest, and then that one over there, it certainly wasn't mushy at all, but you can definitely tell it was not as solid as this one here. So, but they are solid as all get. I'm super happy with how it came out, and I will no doubt make those piers in the same method as I did this time. 100%. Hey guys, as I'm walking back up here towards the house, I want to thank you guys as usual for hanging out with me. It's always fun, isn't it? I wish I had a dime every time I walked up this hill. I mean to tell you, I might have a tractor for those that say I need a tractor. Anyway, listen guys, yeah, I appreciate you hanging out. Be sure you smash that thumbs up. You can always comment, tell me what you think of what I did, good or bad. Or my skin is pretty damn thick, so I can take it. And yeah, subscribe for me, will you? We'll see you on the next one, guys.